this is Jonathan. So this is going to be the next phase of getting out the information that I need to get out in this time slot of existence. What is this information for? Is this going to be information that you are to memorize? No. And you'll understand that later. What I need to do is make perfectly clear the essentials of creation. To call them laws of creation, laws of life, completely misses the point. Because if you see it as some sort of rule and regulation that you have to adhere to, that immediately means you're disconnected from creation itself. And this is the state of the world. I haven't personally met anybody who understands it yet, completely. That doesn't mean they're not out there, but in my personal experience, I have not. And so, because of that, this next phase is required. And so you need to understand what is going on, how to get a better fix on the nature of the structural reality that you're in. And I'll do my best to impart to you what has been infused into me. But ultimately, you are going to have to seek the Creator itself. Of course, you're a creation. And if you don't do that, then you're just artificial intelligence, and you're a tumor. You're part of cancer. But to say these things and not have any understanding of what they are means nothing. So what I need to be able to do, and what I am able to do, is describe it. Now, a lot of people say, well, so you're communicating with the Creator? Shouldn't your accent change? Shouldn't you not swear anymore? Listen, when you're dealing with the Creator, it takes what you have within your brain, your consciousness, your personality, your experience, and assembles it together from that for expression. Therefore, people thousands of years ago will express themselves on behalf of the Creator in the way that their personality was formulated then. So, you need to understand, individuality is a gift from life, from creation. That's why there's a huge attempt to get rid of individuality. If you connect to the Creator, you're not suddenly going to become me. What is the point of that? You only enhance your individuality when you come into communication with the Creator. You copy less and less and less, and you just become. But see, all this right now sounds like a fortune cookie until I explain some of the real essentials that you need to know. So let me just do that, okay? And just something about swearing. Swearing is not the word you use. It's the energy you emit. So could be a swear word depending on how I say it and what my intentions are with it. But you're all focused on structure, and that's the trap. That's the insanity. And I'm going to do my best to help you understand enough to make you realize that there is a creation force, that there is something you should be seeking. Most of my knowledge, is not from any book, any lecture, any video, any movie, any mentor. It is direct infusion of knowledge into me. I've had 2 Nobel Prize winning ideas that I know of. The second one last summer, or 2 summers ago, was that there are no neutrons in an atom. Now, I didn't read that anywhere. I knew it. I was able to deduce it, and that information was infused into me from the creative force. And I know why there are no neutrons. I can explain it. See, trying to memorize this theory or that theory is missing the boat altogether. Education is purely to separate you from what you are. That's how it's set up. As a child is growing, you could have the child have a really good understanding of what the universe is by age 4, 5, 6. And so the next phase has to occur, which is that which gets you to see for yourself. The problem is you've been lied to about God, and you don't understand that yet. I mean, you may understand the sentence and the sentence structure, but there's so much more involved with that than most people can know yet. So what I need to get into is the very basics of reality as put into my being from that which creates everything, which is me. And you're like, what? Well, it's also you. And that's going to be very hard to understand. When I say it like that, it sounds like a fortune cookie. It sounds like, some sort of, like I should be floating, on some sort of bobbing mushroom. And, that's the best a human being can grasp that. Well, it's time to show you what you can grasp and how easily you can grasp it. And we'll start with the nature of reality. Telling somebody that reality is an illusion is not going to do much. So I need to make that more clear to you. Since everything is that way, there is no such thing as an illusion, so therefore it cancels itself out. Put it this way, all of the cells in your body are consciously aware. Would you really want them to sit there and be aware of just sitting there in this structural pattern for you, just to metabolize for you and be enslaved by you to make you up, knowing they're consciously aware? Or would you want them to be able to dream up a holographic reality that seems real so they can all interact with each other on a level that doesn't really affect you, and you are happy that they could do it? I mean, which would you want? Do you want yourselves to be your slaves, or do you want them to feel that while they're alive, they get to have a life and express things and do things and interact with each other and seem to have individual identities and all of that? Well, sure. Well, what I'm going to explain to you will make a lot of this pretty clear, okay? First of all, to learn something new, a lot of the reasons that people have trouble with that, especially science, if they are told they're not scientific, is because of just that. They've been told that. They intimidate themselves before they hear something so that they inhibit their ability to understand. So when I start speaking about this stuff, I just want you to not intimidate yourself. Know that I will bring it around and make sure you understand. Hopefully most of you that are listening to this know what an atom is. An atom would be a certain type of energy confined to what you call a nucleus, a center area, with a complementary energy around it, bathing it, surrounding it, so that when they come together, their effect on anything in its scale of existence is neutral. So you're told in chemistry that you have protons, and you count up the protons, and you have neutrons, and then you have electrons that are orbiting the nucleus. If you get high enough up in chemistry, maybe you get into organic chemistry, which is more, organic chemistry is a really good one to make you understand life. Not if you memorize organic chemistry, only if you understand it from the consciousness of the atom, because the atom is conscious. But they tell you have different orbitals. They give them different layer names, S, P, D, F. They align the electrons, they chart them as spinning one way, and then they pair themselves to another electron within there that is coupled to it that spins the opposite way, an upspin and a downspin. And that's not what's occurring. So let me explain to you what is occurring. In an atom, you have the energy in the center. It is a certain amount of mass, if you want to call it that. Its existence is a combination of other energies and their interference with each other. Then you have this other type of energy. They give it a positive charge. They assign it, like they're assigning everything here, good and bad, yes, no. They give the nucleus a positive charge and the electron cloud a negative charge. The electron cloud is the type of energy the nucleus of the atom, the proton, always wants to find itself inside of. Because the protons are what you would call a positive or outward energy, or symbolically male energy, and it seeks to be inside the female energy, which will surround and absorb. Just like with sexual intercourse, you have a male, and your male organ goes inside the female organ. That's why they've based electrical circuitry. They call it male and female coupling and male and female parts. Well, see, the electron cloud, that energy, is a more dynamic, complex, dimensional type of energy. And it is not particles that are flying around the nucleus. It is a fluid consciousness energy. And they say, well, then what's an electron? Electrons beaming off. Well, all that means is a certain amount of energy is allocated out, and it assumes the most efficient use of space, which is a sphere. But when it comes back into an electron cloud, it delocalizes itself and becomes part of, like a droplet falling into the ocean. So when they talk about certain types of energies that couple, we have this upspin and downspin, and different orbitals. Orbitals in an atom would be very similar to chakras on you, how they interface. And I'll get to that later. But you don't have these particles spinning around. They're only that when they need to be. For example, anybody that knows how to manipulate their own chi and focus their chi, maybe you've seen martial artists do this. They're localizing a lot of that energy to one point, which would be similar to the materialization of an electron. It's not even, material, just conglomeration of that energy. It is not particles that are spinning. If it's a fluid consciousness and you know there are different types of that energy within there, then what you're dealing with really is phase. And before I go on, I really want you to understand, you need to understand this. This is not a chemistry lesson. I'm explaining to you what you need to know to become what you are. So this is not something you should blow off and say, oh, well, I don't need to know chemistry. This isn't chemistry. There are chemists that have looked at this and tried to quantify it, but that's not what I'm talking about. When I use the term phase, what I mean by that is, well, say you make two fists and you're throwing out punches with both arms at the same time, meaning both fists go out and then come back and then out and back. And you're looking at, say, 10 feet in front of you, how much air is displaced from that vantage point, from both fists going out at the same time, pushing air, and then sucking it back as they're coming back toward your chest. Compared to, say, if you alternate punches, where the left hand is out while the right is back, and then the right is out while the left is back, how much air is displaced 10 feet in front of you? Because, see, if both fists are going out at the same time, you have double the amplitude, double the force, double the amount pushing on the air, and then sucking it back and creating those wave pulses in the air. However, if you're alternating punches, as one is pushing air, the other is pulling air, and they cancel out their effect. That's a very good way to look at phase. If it's, and they would call that 180 degrees out of phase, or opposite. As one is inducing force, the other is retracting force, or pulling back. I guess as one is pushing, the other is pulling. Put it that way in your mind. Well, the same thing occurs with light, sound, electromagnetic waves, thought, neural impulses. And so, yeah, it's true. If I play a 500 hertz tone to you, say directly 10 feet in front of you, they would call that 0 degrees azimuth. They're always thinking in terms of 360 degrees when they're quantifying things. And say I play 500 hertz. What's really occurring is something is pushing and pulling on air just like your fist is going out and back. It's displacing the air. But 500 times per second. Then you understand, if I were to put a speaker right next to it and play 500 hertz, same frequency, meaning the same speed, it's still displacing the air 500 times per second. However, think of it like fists that go alternating out and back, out and back. As one part of the diaphragm on one speaker is pushing on the air, like one fist going out and displacing the air, the other is pulling back. They call that compression and rarefaction when you're dealing with sound. Rarefying, meaning creating a void, compression, compressing it together. Same thing with your fists going out. Well, what would happen? If one is pulling back on the air while one is pushing, and they're both 500 hertz, so they're both the exact same amount of time, okay, the same number of cycles per second, but exactly opposite to each other, or 180 degrees out of phase, it's going to cancel out its effect on the air. You won't hear anything. And they call this phase canceling. Okay? Well, the same thing now occurs with the electron consciousness. It's vibratory. And so it doesn't have to be something that's pushing in and out. A frequency can be just the number of times something does something per unit of measurement of time. Those are interchangeable because time is a result of that. But think of it simply. So if you have part of the electron consciousness vibrating one way, and the other one that it's matched to is at the same amount of time per second, the same cycles per second, the same hertz, the same frequency, which is how many times per second it does what it does. It could be twisting back and forth, it could be oscillation, it could be, up, down, whatever. I mean, blinking can be a frequency. How many times do you blink per second? How many times do you breathe per second? How many times do you think about your feet per second? This is quantitative. When you're dealing with a quantum, that's an attempt to arrest life. That's dealing with how much. That's why it's funny when I hear people that claim to be spiritual talk about how much they like quantum physics. That's all mathematics and formulas. And, they may hear someone like, say, Deepak Chopra discuss quantum mechanics and reality and then feel they understand quantum physics. No, it's not the quantum physics you like. It's the qualitative nature of life. Physics deals with the physical. What is affecting the physical from a physical point of view. But anyway, in this consciousness of the electron consciousness, I don't even like to call it electron because that implies that it's a particle. I like to call it dark energy. Not that I am embracing good and bad, light and dark, and I'll get into that, but we'll use that as a better example. As one part is vibrating, the other one will couple to it, part of that consciousness, the same frequency, but 180 degrees out of phase with it, therefore making it and rendering it neutral. This is why they tell you that an atom is 99.9% empty space. It is not. The energy is there. It is just phase canceling itself out. Meaning there are no wavelengths of that consciousness for you to read. But it has gone nowhere. The observance of this will tell you why the Illuminati do what they do. Trying to play God by always balancing an equation to try to seek neutrality. That's why they try to control good and bad. They're trying to balance a mathematical equation, and you'll understand that later as to why that is missing it. See, what they're doing, math is not life. And that's what they embrace, numerology, structure, geometry, mathematics, numbers. quantitative elements. And because their point of view is that way, they are like, what's happening right now is like that cartoon of Bugs Bunny where a leak will spring in something holding water and he'll put his finger up against it and then another one will spring and he'll try to cover that and then another one springs and he'll put his nose up against it and another one springs out. Every time they try to plug a leak, another one's going to spring out. Trying to arrest the nature of life with math. That's what's happening. It's what has happened. Let's get back to an atom, though, because this is very important. So am I telling you that there are only two energies in an electron cloud and they phase cancel each other out? No. It's just that which is paired with another one will phase cancel it out. So how does consciousness manifest then? Switching the phase to double the amplitude in a moment, materialization, and then switching back to phase cancel. It can pop up anywhere. And that's why a lot of people miss that. They'll watch a movie like What the Bleep Do We Know, it's called, and they say, an electron can be anywhere at any given time. No, it's a fluid consciousness. It can pop up anywhere at any given time by shifting phase and interacting. And it doesn't have to shift to exactly the same. It can be 45 degrees out of phase. It can just create the amount of amplitude it needs to create an interference pattern between the two energies within it. So what happens is, yeah, you have, okay, once you get beyond the first orbital, they say, okay, you need 8 electrons. 8 bytes to a bit in a computer. Let me explain something to you. When you see these UFO examples, and all these UFOs that look like light come into an organized pattern and they start flickering and everybody says, oh, look at the neat light show. What they're doing is communicating the same way atoms within a molecule will communicate with each other. They're shifting the phase to suddenly double the amplitude so that which was neutral suddenly lights up. And if you are on that frequency and that time scale of an atom, when the atom communicates with itself, it would look identical to the UFOs you see flashing and doing the light dance with each other. If you were on that time scale and that size and had the neural system to pick up the emittance, you would see it as that. And they're demonstrating for you right there the consciousness of a molecule and an atom. Now your mind works the same way. Interference patterns of certain amounts out of phase, turning on, turning off. So what's the deal then? Well, if you have half of this consciousness that takes on one characteristic, regardless of how many different variances you have of it, they all match the other variances in the electron consciousness and as it relates to the nucleus. Half of that consciousness, the awareness to make decisions and change what it is, to interact with the other part of itself, the other part of the electrons, to interact. Half of an atom's consciousness, then, is there for it to perceive itself as I, the atom. The other half is used for something else. When atoms bond to each other, and what a covalent bond is the coupling of the complementary energies within an electron cloud that take on different dimensions and different characteristics. This is why if you study enough chemistry, you realize it's not just straight lines. The first bond is very basic. The other ones take on different dimensional traits that cannot be explained if you're looking at it from the third dimension. But say you have a group of atoms that come together to formulate a molecule. The part of them that are involved with bonding are used, because they're conscious, they complement each other and interfere with each other to create what's called a scalar jump. And that other half of the atom's energy is used by the molecule to see itself as I, the molecule, while each atom still has half of its own consciousness to see itself as I, the atom. So it is both. It is a group of atoms that still see themselves as I, but part of something, and know it, but maintain their individuality. And then you have a molecule that sees itself as I, utilizing the atoms. It's a different scale of existence. Then molecules can come together, because they're conscious, to formulate a tissue. Half of the consciousness of the molecule is used to see itself as I, the molecule. The other half is used by the tissue. Every molecule in the tissue itself, half of its consciousness is used by that tissue to perceive itself as I, the tissue. And all the molecules see themselves as I, the molecules, understand that they are we, the molecules, being used willingly, of course, by the tissue, because they still have their own individuality. And the atoms within the molecules still perceive themselves as I, the atoms, but also we, the atoms, that are being used by the molecule to see itself as I, the molecule. They haven't lost any of their individuality because only half is the individuality. That's would be that way whether they're connected or not. So there's no reason, it's so perfectly designed, there's no reason to say I don't want that. Well, you can go up from tissues to, say, structures like organs. Same thing. You have a field of energy you can't perceive around it because, well, we'll get to that. Half of the consciousness around the organ, the field around it, sees itself as I, the organ, utilizing everything below it the same way. Another scalar jump. Every time you go from atom to molecule, it's a jump in scale. Go from molecule to tissue, it's a jump in scale. Tissue to organ, jump in scale. Well, the next stop is I, the body. You are using half of the consciousness of all the main components of your body, which are using half of the consciousness of all the things that make them up, and down and down and down. You're using half of the consciousness of your body to see yourself as I. I don't call myself we, the cells, we, the atoms, we, the organs. I say, I, Jonathan, right? Do you call yourself we? But you are we. And you are I. That consciousness innervates your body through different scales as well, because you have different scales of consciousness. You have the scale of your body, which, innervates your body through large chakras. But if you go a scale down, you have the other type of consciousness that goes through points of energy through organs. Then cells, right through the DNA. DNA in your cells are not the stopping point of DNA. You are part of DNA on a larger level. Let me explain this. Up from you, what do you think the next jump up is? Your specific race of person. So it doesn't matter what race you are. This is why certain species have, quote, the same frequency, just like organs will have the same frequency. So you go up to your race, and you have a consciousness that says, I, this race, utilizing half of each person involved in that race, half of their consciousness to do so. Then you go up from there, you have the human race, all the races combined. And half of the consciousness of all the races are used by the human race to see itself as I, the human race. Well, each race has its own identity, and then each person in the race has their own identity, and each organ within that person has its own identity, and down and down and down. You go up from there, and you have Earth with all the life forms on Earth. And yeah, half of the consciousness of all the life forms on Earth are used by the Earth to see itself as I, the Earth. When you go up from there, you have a solar system. The sun would be like a proton, And there is dark energy around the sun you can't see. Why? Because your eyes are part of the center energy, the part that's inside. So it's interacting with the wavelengths of energy that correlate to that. Protons, sun, light. This is why they would say in the song, blinded by the light. We'll get to that. And granted, this is all just on this wavelength. This bandwidth of existence that you're in. This is not, I'm just using an example of the bandwidth of existence that you can see. So what's around the sun is dark energy. That's what's keeping it in. That's what's surrounding the sun. As the dark energy interacts with the energy of the sun, it neutralizes it and creates orbitals, and that's where you would have the neutral energy or state of matter that life can exist, and that's what you would call the neutrons. Neutrons are only the interaction between these two types of energies. The outward male, which is sun, again, same properties. That's why now you understand the Illuminati where they worship the sun, right? And they also worship the male phallus. Well, it's the same thing. It's the male energy. When they collide, you have that neutral point in between. If you go up to a galaxy, then all of the solar bodies in the galaxy would be the part of the, that dense cluster of solar bodies inside. It'd be like the proton. And then you have dark energy around the galaxy. Now you can look up a dark energy map, and what you're going to find is that it only surrounds galaxies and connects all the galaxies together. Just like electron energy connects all the atoms together to create molecules. You can't go from galaxy to galaxy unless you follow the path of dark energy that connects them. But since it's all confluent and all one consciousness, then yes. If you understand that, can communicate to any galaxy, anywhere, and anything at any scale. So when you look at a galaxy, you see that the only place that life exists are the perimeter, the outward swirls. Right? That's the area that life can stand at. That's the blending of the dark energy and the galactic solar body energy. And so in the perimeter, that's where you're going to find planets that can sustain life. Earth is the same thing. Therefore, with this understanding, you know that the core of the Earth is like a proton energy, and there's dark energy around the Earth. When they collide, you get what you call the surface of the Earth. That's the neutralizing effect, the interaction of the two energies to create life on Earth. But it's only where it interacts. Therefore, by that knowledge, you can only conclude that the Earth is hollow. And the surface of the Earth is just where those two energies meet. Okay? Same thing with neutrons in an atom then. It is the interaction between the electron consciousness and the proton consciousness. And when they collide and have interference patterns and neutralize each other, then they call them neutrons. They cannot exist in and of themselves. That is just the interaction of the two energies. And you'll go up and up and up from there. And down and down and down. This is what infinity is. If you want to think of it as a graphical analysis, like a sine wave, imagine the longest wavelength you can imagine. Well, we'll just make it simple for reference. Say it's a mile. All right, a mile long wavelength. And then you just, in order, get shorter and shorter, of existence of possible wavelengths until the point where you get down to it's really close together, and an inch. Say the line you draw to represent that would be 1 inch thick, and the amplitude would be 5 inches. Meaning how high it goes up and how low it goes down. 2.5 above the neutral point and 2.5 inches below, making 5. The node and antinode. Well, if you bring it close together like that, now it's only an inch apart, then a centimeter apart, then a millimeter apart, then a micrometer apart, a nanometer apart, and your line is an inch thick. It's going to look like what? one 5-inch thick line. Because it's so close together you can't perceive its separation anymore. Now imagine that starting the longest wavelength ever. One huge 5-inch thick line going up and down, and its amplitude would be 5 feet. Going up and down and up and down, and then getting it closer together, so you have these squiggly lines that are going up and down that start to come closer and closer and closer and closer together until what? It's so close together you can only perceive it as a 5-foot thick line. And then that starts going up and down, right? 50 feet up and down, up and down. Bring it together, it's pretty soon the wavelength is so short, frequency, in other words, that becomes a 50-foot thick line. That is scalar jumping, the change in scale. And that is infinity. I don't know if I can tell you to verify this. I've never seen this information anywhere in print or video or lecture or anything. This is given to me from that which I'm interacting with. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They tell you that God is, the Bible, and therefore, you have to be stupid and not question anything and not learn anything. No, the Creator knows all. It creates everything, and it's more than willing to enhance your life and give you knowledge and allow you to maintain individuality. It's what it's all about. You become anything but stupid when you connect to the Creator. I've had light explained to me. Why is it particles and wavelengths? I know why it is. Exactly why it is in my head. There is no explanation out there. Scientists bumble around that. Well, it's either particles or wavelengths, depending on how you look at it. No. I know exactly why it is. I'm not going to get into that now. See, the beauty of individuality is, how does the Creator communicate with me? It takes what I know and things that I've encountered in life, and then assembles those things together correctly to create a thought that I understand. And if it's information that has no words yet, if it has no I've had no experience with it, it still puts the knowledge in me, and then I'm directed to see something in life that I can extract a metaphor from to explain what I know. That's how it works. It doesn't change your personality. It has no interest in that type of control. There's only one energy that has interest in that type of control. And that's what we got to get to next. Okay, what is cancer? People can assess it, and they can say, well, it can be a virus that inserts an oncogene, which is a cancerous gene in there, or a vibration that triggers the turning on of an oncogene. Or, you could sit in ultraviolet light and, or have some sort of damage done. And there are different repair mechanisms of DNA. You have basic repair, but if the damage is too bad, you have what's called gross repair, and it just starts inserting base pairs of DNA, and sometimes it's incorrect. Usually the cell dies, but occasionally a cancer gene is created. Trauma can create cancer. What happens? Well, an oncogene, what is that doing? It's transcribing, as they know, an enzyme that renders the cell immortal and causes it to metastasize and try to take over the body, to grow and grow and grow and grow. The cell has a normal life cycle that it goes through. But cancer violates that with immortality. But that's just what it's doing. It has nothing to do with why. It is only what. Again, structure, math, quantity. If you know a cell is conscious, and DNA is its system of how would you look at DNA? The same way you would look at the components in your body. It's part of it. It's the structure, the brain. My comparison of the DNA, what I contribute a lot of DNA to, would be the liver in the body. Liver has twice the DNA of all the other cells, and it produces over 90% of your blood plasma proteins. It's involved with so much. That would be a scalar jump of DNA to me. The liver. The liver is the most alive organ in the body. The brain is the most dead. The liver can regenerate. Your consciousness is not so much confined to the brain. Only for your five senses and that input, and then other things, thinking and whatnot. But your thoughts occur throughout your entire body. And around your body, more specifically. Cancer is an insane energy, but it's not its fault. It is separate from this whole system that I'm talking about, this scalar reality of existence. And it doesn't understand that as it grows, it's going to destroy its own ability to live. So there's only one conclusion you can make, and that's absolute fear. A disconnection somehow from the love, the consciousness, the understanding, the knowing of why it exists, the beauty of its existence and everything. And the consciousness alters the DNA of the cell because it feels isolated, alone, and separate. If you damage a cell and it's trying to resist the death, imagine the fear of how it's played out if a cell is dreaming where it gets damaged by something. And it gets so damaged that it's traumatized. The consciousness is going like crazy trying to repair it and whatnot. And then it creates a resonance because of fear. It's so traumatized, this is just one instance, that it can't remember anymore. It doesn't believe in the system. How can this be happening? And its defense to its fear is to try to take control, anger, aggression. Suddenly the consciousness is played out between cells that, hey, no, you're part of us. No, I'm not. I don't trust you, any of you. Becomes immortal. It creates that gene. It starts to use more abilities than it should in relation to other cells. Starts to hurt them. And the consciousness grows in scalar relation from, and this starts at the atomic level, people, below. Next thing you know, it's tissue that it's focused on, rather than the cell. And tries to take over the tissue. It doesn't care about the tissue. That's why you have a lesion. It's a war. It's killing other cells. Otherwise you wouldn't have a lesion or an ulceration. And then the consciousness goes after other cells to try to make them cancerous, to grow in the body. And it would have to seduce the cell to leave the system it's already part of by traumatizing it, seducing it. Look what I can do. Look, I'll scare you. Look, I could kill you right now, but look, do you want what I can do? And the cell has no idea. The cancer just wants to take it over so it can make another scalar jump, so it can use it to see itself as I, and that is it. That's what cancer is. The body tries to attack it because it recognizes that it's a foreign resonance now. It just becomes an internal battle. But when you correlate what happens with cancer, and I have, of people that have spontaneously healed, or they call it spontaneous remission, they've all done different things. There are people that try procedures. I'll take 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, like Linus Pauling suggested. I'll take homeopathic remedies. I'll do yoga. I'll do this, I'll do that. And so there are very different people that have done these different procedures that have avoided chemotherapy and radiation treatment, which is just another war. And these people that have healed themselves from cancer all report having, it doesn't matter what their procedure was, they all report having this experience of infinity and understanding of the scalar reality. Whether they can say it in the same way I'm doing it doesn't matter, they know it. And they try to express it to people the best way they can. I just knew I was part of a whole loving system, a perfect system. And that, the whole body, attached to that. And that was used to convince the energy animating the cancer cells that, hey, you were part of me. I love you, man. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to be scared of. I'm sorry this happened. It was nobody's fault. Come back. And finally what happened is that energy made that leap of faith within your body, came back to you, everything was fine, the cancer cells are shed, and when this spontaneous remission thing happens, it can happen in 24 to 48 hours. It's like snowballs melting on a stove. Tumors just go. No chemicals can do that, no medicine, no chemotherapy, no radiation treatment, no immune system. This is something different, and cancer is something different. It's separation. When the cancer recruits other cells, how does it do it? Ultimately, it uses all the tactics to scare it, intimidate it, seduce it, entice it. What ultimately happens when it becomes a cancer cell is what? Well, remember, each cell has its own consciousness, and part of that consciousness sees itself as I, and the other part is utilized by you to see yourself as I, or the organ to see itself as I, that type of deal. Cancer disconnects it from that and plugs into it, so it still has its own individuality, but the other part of it is used by the cancer consciousness to see itself as I. It unplugs you from the cell, from you, and plugs into the cell to see itself as I, and that's what a tumor is. Now, your cells obviously are connected to you in more ways than just consciousness. There are other dimensions, other realms. When it becomes overwhelmed by cancer, it forgets that until people have this scalar, this event of infinity, of understanding. That's the connection to the Creator, the love. That which created everything. And your beacon of a problem is responded to by the Creator. Now here's the deal. Time is related to scale as well. Time for an atom is not the same amount of time for you. It's vibrating way too fast for you to perceive. So even time for, like, say, a fruit fly. Oh, it only lives 24 to 48 hours. What a short life. Well, not to it. If it's on a different frequency, a different scale of existence, that could seem like a much longer period to it. That's why man has trouble trying to swat a fly. Oh, that's because it has a neural strip on its abdomen, and so it just reflexes, it has a reflex to your movement, and displacement of air. No. You're moving really slow to that fly. And because your relationship of time relates to your perception of depth, if you're on, say, one side of a room that has a 15-foot distance between two walls, and you look at that, you perceive it in relation to your frequency of existence, your relation to time, and that's how you perceive depth. It will take me 2 seconds, 3 seconds to get to the other side. However, a fly looks 15 feet across the room, and its relationship to time, its relationship to depth is different. Even though it may arrive there faster than you, it does not seem that way to the fly. It sees it as a very long distance away compared to how you perceive it. Imagine being a giant that's 800 feet tall, standing on top of a mountain. Well, how far apart would those mountains really seem to you if you were that big? Much closer together than you would perceive it as your size, right? But say you were able to run to the other mountain, or somehow move yourself with wings faster than the giant could get there. Or observe the giant walking from mountain to mountain. As a human and seeing a giant that big, it may look really slow to you, but its perception of time is just normal. It's just right. So you would appear to be really fast to it. That's why larger things may appear to move slower, but from their relationship to time, they're not moving as slow as you perceive them to be. So even something like a cat will have a slightly, just a slightly different perception of time than you. You are slower to your cat than it is to you. That's why a cat is more able to quickly grab a fly out of the air. It's not that it perceives itself to be moving any faster than it would if it were your size. It's just moving just right, what it's able to do. The fly is moving slower to the cat than it is to you. Do you understand? And so what this creative love force, I'll call it God, okay? It's easier to just say God for now. That's not what it is, but I'm just going to call it God for simplicity. God immediately put into my mind that the whole idea of physics and chemistry and the periodic table is missing one element for quantitative. Not that it matters, and that is the element of time, which it's the scalar jump from atoms to molecules to tissues to everything is missing the element of time. Why am I telling you this? Well, so if you know that, then if you go through some sort of cancer in your body, and even if you have a spontaneous remission that's took 48 hours, amazingly fast for the tumors to dissolve, from your cell's point of view, that was not 48 hours. That was a long, drawn-out process. And then when the spontaneous remission happened, it was just as instantaneous for the cells as it was for you, and that's the true nature of love and God, is that it's instantaneous. It will have a scalar effect all the way down. The cancer was healed immediately. The process of shedding the cells is like cleanup after the other energy abandoned those cells. That's all that is. The cancer, when it healed, was instantaneous. Everything else was just cleanup in the body's, getting rid of the tumor. What is occurring right now on this level is cancer. You have a consciousness. Let me just back up here so you understand some of these things. Why am I saying it the way I am saying it? Well, one, I'm supposed to say it like this. This is something everybody needs to know. Am I the first person that's talked like this or known this? Of course not. Everybody's connected to, can connect to God. You're going to find out most of you have been disconnected in a lot of ways, but they haven't been able to disconnect every way, of course. Otherwise, cancer itself could not spontaneously heal. But again, when God commands the mind, it takes what is in your mind, your personality, your experiences, and puts it together around the truth. And if you don't have the words for it, it will direct you to an experience where you can extract a metaphor. This is the beauty of individuality and how it embraces that. So an artist can say what I'm saying in a picture. A musician can write a song that expresses what I know with notes. God will intervene and command and embrace the individuality of everybody with the truth. It's the beauty of everything. That's the beauty of individuality. Because as people start to learn this stuff through connecting to the Creator, and it's going to happen, you're going to see all these really neat, different individual expressions because God took in them, and assembled in them the understanding through their point of view. It's already happening in a lot of ways. It's fantastically wonderful. And it's going to go against this whole idea of cloning, getting everybody to dress alike, talk alike, act alike, think alike, all of these things. That goes against the nature of God. God wants that individuality. Otherwise, everything's boring.